and those following via social media. Welcome to the continuation of the Committee Country Expenditures Meeting number 3 of today, Monday, March 17, 2025. I welcome the Honorable Minister of Finance, Ms. Maringa Gums, and her support staff. We have established a quorum of five members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of absence from MP Verenkatai. Are there any notifications from any of the members before we proceed? I see MP Lacruz, you have the floor.
A blessed afternoon, Madam Chair Lady, Rifir, Minister and her support staff, those in the Tribune, my fellow colleagues, and those on social media. Madam Chair Lady, MP Otley is running late, but he's coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, MP Lacruz. Are there any other members of Parliament with any notifications? I see none. We go on to the continuation. The agenda point for this committee meeting is discussion with the Minister of Finance on the report from the General Audit Chamber, audit into the process of Ex Officio Tax Assessments, which is IS/728/2022 to 2023, as well as IS 1077/2022-2023, dated September 6, 2023. This meeting was requested by Member of Parliament Sarah Wescot-Williams. We go over to the agenda point. Parliament received the report audit into the process of Ex Officio Tax Assessments from the General Audit Chamber on April 26, 2023. Subsequently, on September 6, 2023, Parliament received a letter from MP Wescot-Williams with the request that a meeting of the Committee of Country Expenditures be convened to discuss the report of the General Audit Chamber. The presence of the Minister of Finance was requested. This meeting was held on February 12, 2025. After a presentation by the Minister of Finance, Ms. Maringa Gums, members of Parliament were given the opportunity to pose questions to the Minister. The meeting was then adjourned to allow the Minister time to prepare the answers to the questions posed by members of Parliament. It is also good to note that the continuation of this committee meeting was originally called for March 5, 2025, but was postponed upon the request of the Minister. Today, the Minister of Finance, Ms. Maringa Gums, has returned to Parliament to provide the answers to the questions posed by the members of Parliament. I hereby give the floor to the Minister of Finance, Ms. Maringa Gums, to answer the questions. Minister, you have the floor.
Madam Chair Lady, honorable members of Parliament, esteemed support staff, members of the media, distinguished guests in the public tribune, radio and social media viewers, residents of our beloved island, ladies and gentlemen, all under the sound of my voice, good afternoon and blessed day. I am here to provide answers to the questions posed by the honorable members of Parliament as it pertains to the audit into the process of Ex Officio Tax Assessments, which was executed by the General Audit Chamber, of which the report was issued in April 2023. I will now delve directly into the questions and provide answers to the questions posed. Question 1 from MP Wescott. The Minister highlighted limitations in tax data collection. Is there anything that can be done to obtain generalized tax data overall? The Minister responded that generalized tax information would need to be obtained from a third party. Given these limitations, what can be done to extract general tax data, such as the number of taxpayers, compliance rates, etc., moving forward, especially with any anticipated tax changes or updates to the tax system? Through you, Madam Chair, currently data is being extracted to support the tax reform process. However, in some cases, such as with ex officio assessments, the data is not explicitly categorized as either a regular assessment or an ex officio assessment. As a result, this specific categorization is unavailable. Despite this, other generalized data sets can be extracted, and these are now being retrieved by the vendor for analysis. This analysis will help substantiate the proposed reforms, including adjustments to profit tax, wage tax, and other relevant areas. While data can be extracted, whether through a third party or otherwise, the challenge in some cases lies in how the data is stored or categorized. As a result, certain important information may not be retrievable. Given that the current tax system is outdated, there are limited possibilities for adjusting data classification. However, this remains a crucial aspect in the process of implementing a new tax system for St. Martin, as crucial and accessible data is essential. Question 2. The minister has previously mentioned in meetings about tax reforms that there is at least one draft ordinance currently being processed concerning taxes. Since the website of the Council of Advice is still under construction, it is not possible to see which legislation is pending or has been handled by the Council of Advice. Can you provide an overview of the status of the draft tax ordinance? Through you, Madam Chair, what I can confirm is that the first ordinance to be presented will be the Landsverordening Herziening Formeel Belastingrecht. This national ordinance was submitted to Parliament in November 2023. Fiscal Affairs recently, upon my instruction, drafted a note of wijziging to ensure that obligations applying to the inspector can also be applied to SBAP, the receiver, and ATS. The note of wijziging was discussed in the Council of Ministers meeting on March 4th, 2025, after which it can proceed to Parliament. It is my intention to return to Parliament in April 2025 to present this national ordinance. The Landsverordening Herziening Formeel Belastingrecht will be followed by the Landsverordening Belastingshervorming Phase 1. This ordinance will retract outdated tax laws that are still in effect but no longer apply, providing legal certainty. These laws include the Inheritance Tax Ordinance, the Land Tax Ordinance, the National Ordinance regulating the levying of surcharges on land tax assessments. The Landsverordening Belastingshervorming Phase 1 has returned from the Council of Advice, and we are now working on the NADA report, which is expected to be sent to Fiscal Affairs in the coming weeks, after which it will proceed to Yezet and Way. The Council of Ministers and the Governor, with the goal of submitting it to Parliament in the second quarter of 2025. Additionally, on February 27, 2025, a meeting was held with the SER, together with the Minister of TIAT and the Minister of VSA concerning the introduction of the visitor tax. This was a positive meeting, and we hope to receive their advice on this within short to be able to proceed with the review process of this key legislation. Regarding the draft national ordinance to exclude AOV income from an income source tax under the income tax, I can inform Parliament that the draft legislation is near completion. We have received the necessary data from the tax system, which will allow us to proceed with finalizing the draft law and have it sent on to the necessary channels for review. Based on the data received, there are approximately 6,300 seniors, of which more than 85% that are currently being taxed would benefit positively from the proposed changes by falling into a lower tax bracket. The impact is as follows. 823 seniors would move from 12.5% bracket to zero, making their income completely tax-free. 368 seniors would move from the 20% bracket to the 0% bracket, making their income completely tax-free. 421 seniors would move from 20% to 12.5%. 365 seniors would move from 26.25% to 20%. 277 seniors would move from 33.75% to 26.25%. 55 seniors would move from 33.75% to the 20% category. 147 seniors would move from 40% to 33.75%, and 65 seniors would move from 47.5% to 40%. The legislation will bring significant relief to many seniors, and I want to emphasize that data-driven decision-making is key to implementing effective legislative changes. While the full legislative trajectory still needs to be followed, I want to assure the public that work is progressing diligently in the background. My aim is to have the law presented to Parliament this year, as of course it needs to follow the legal trajectory. I intend to keep Parliament and the public informed on the progress, as this is key legislation which will provide significant and necessary relief to our seniors. Can you address the matter of responding to the General Audit Chamber's report and ensure that, especially with the subject matter, and thereby moving forward to ensure that no responses has been overlooked or missed? Through you, Madam Chair, I agree. As mentioned, I recognize and appreciate the important role of the General Audit Chamber. While I have already met with the General Audit Chamber, I believe it is appropriate to provide a written response to ensure that no feedback is overlooked or missed moving forward. The Minister made commitments regarding certain actions to be taken. Is there a realistic timeline for these, especially considering the improvements and reforms being conducted under the TWO Lands Packet? Madam Chair, through you, a realistic timeline will be provided to Parliament in writing. However, I can confirm that for the Landverordening Herziening Formeel Belastingsrecht and the first ordinance to retract outdated laws, I plan to return to Parliament in the second quarter of 2025 to present these matters as it pertains to the remaining tax reforms. We are now in the process of collecting the necessary data and assessing what is retrievable. Once this is known, we can give a realistic timeline. Please allow me some time to get back to you with this information. Next question. The Honorable MP, Madam Chair, through you, mentioned that the Minister is aware of she's not aware if the Minister is aware of the comments made by members of the Second Chamber who also received reports from the TWO. These reports do not seem to meet the most recent standards of reporting from the TWO. The Honorable MP agrees with these members that the report does not clearly reflect the current status of the various projects under the Lands Packet. What the Honorable MP would like to see from the reporting is a realistic timeline that aligns with the government's priorities. Could the Minister clarify which elements of tax reform are most important to the Ministry of Finance and the Government of St. Martin? Additionally, could these elements be prioritized and addressed separately from the TWO process? Madam Chair, through you, I fully understand the concerns raised by the members of the Second Chamber and agree that clear and realistic reporting is important for transparency and accountability. As I have mentioned before, my main priorities in tax reform are reducing profit tax and adjusting the wage tax brackets and rates. In addition, I am also focused on the tax on winnings, the introduction of a sin tax, and making taxes simpler overall. We understand the need for a clear timeline, but for this to happen, we need the necessary data. Setting a timeline without having the right information would not be useful. Right now, we are working on gathering and sharing this data securely within legal limits. Once this is done, we will present a proper timeline and priority plan to Parliament. Next question. The MP indicated, Madam Chair, through you, the participation in a virtual conference in which a business executive of Aruba gave his take on economic development in Aruba with respect to an item that has generated lots of discussion on St. Martin as well, with respect to taxation, taxes on tips. The comment made was, while many persons are on the minimum wage level, not taxing tips gives these persons a better income and contributes to elevating their social status. In bringing this matter of taxing tips to the attention of the Minister of Finance, I would like I would like to get the minister's take on this matter after the necessary reviewing and research, etc., have been done. Madam Chair, through you, the taxes of tips is an issue that has my full attention, and I will be reviewing the available data to assess its impact. We recognize that many workers in the hospitality sector who receive tips are in the lower income brackets, and it is important to ensure that our tax policies support economic growth while fostering fairness. I am certainly not against this, but it is important to conduct the necessary research and analysis to fully understand the implications. Once the process is completed, I will provide a more detailed response on the way forward. Next question. Several questions have been asked requesting clarification if any of these areas that have been highlighted by Parliament needing to inform the taxpayers can be done via an anscribing. For example, the changes in the profit tax ordinance with respect to associations and foundations. Is the minister of the opinion that the topics mentioned can be shaped in anscribing? If this instrument can be used, is the minister intending to use it? If so, in which areas? Through you, Madam Chair, we are currently looking into this to assess what actions I can take or implement through an anscribing. Once this has been determined, it will be formally submitted in writing. I now move on to questions by MP Janssen-Webster. MP Janssen-Webster, Madam Chair, through you, stated her participation in the survey carried out by the General Audit Chamber as it pertains to this report. Minister mentioned that only when businesses did not file, they receive an ex officio assessment. But what the MP has claimed to have seen in practice is that sometimes your taxes are declared monthly, but you still receive an ex officio assessment and the proof of burden is reversed, and you have to come and bring all your documentation to prove again what you have already filed. Through you, Madam Chair, the tax administration's legacy systems still rely on manual data entry, which can sometimes result in errors. While businesses can submit their taxes online, tax employees must manually input this data into the system because the online submission platform is not yet integrated with the main tax system. Work is currently underway to address this integration gap. As a result, there may be delays between when taxes are submitted and when an ex officio assessment is issued. We understand the inconvenience this may cause and are actively working on modernizing the tax system to enhance efficiency, as this is key. In the meantime, we strongly advise taxpayers to retain proof of submission to ensure accurate assessments. Next question. We would like to know if individuals responsible for assessments and collections receive remuneration based on the number of assessments they issue or the amount they collect. Madam Chair, through you, the answer, no. Employees responsible for assessments and collections do not receive remunerations based on the number of assessments issued or the amount collected. Their compensation is not commission-based, but follows standard government salary structures. Next question. The minister mentioned that the ex officio assessments for individuals in 2019 and businesses in 2020 were only sent out last year. What is the reason for the backlog? Additionally, we were informed that there is a 5-year limit to collect outstanding payments. Do we anticipate being able to catch up or at least reduce the backlog moving forward? The backlog in issuing ex officio assessments for 2019 individuals and 2020 businesses is primarily due to resource constraints, system limitations, and the manual processes currently in place with the tax administration. While efforts have been made to improve efficiency, these challenges have contributed to delays. Regarding the 5-year collection period, the law does establish a statutory timeframe for tax collection. However, the government remains committed to enhancing compliance and streamlining operations to ensure assessments are issued in a more timely manner. To address this, we are currently actively working on modernizing our tax administration systems and optimizing internal processes. These efforts aim to reduce backlogs and improve overall efficiency in the future. Next question. Based on this report from the General Audit Chamber and their recommendations, is the ministry going to start to monitor the results of the ex officio tax assessments for 2019 individuals and 2020 business onwards? For example, how many were paid, how many were rectified, what is the difference between the assessed amount and the rectified amount? Through you, Madam Chair. As previously stated, assessments are not explicitly recorded as either a regular assessment or an ex officio tax assessment. At this time, due to existing limitations, it is not possible to provide the requested information regarding the monitoring of the results of the ex officio tax assessments for 2019 individuals and 2020 for businesses. We understand the importance of this data and are working towards improving our systems, but we are not yet in a position to track and report on these details effectively. As a result, this specific information is unavailable. Next question. Honest businesses that file their taxes are registered and often end up receiving tax officio assessments, while businesses that operate without even ever filing remain under the radar and never receive any assessments. What happens to these businesses that are not registered in the tax system? Is it possible to establish a link with the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Affairs to ensure that all businesses are properly registered and assessed where necessary? If not, what are the reasons preventing this? Currently, Madam Chair, through you, businesses that operate without filing their taxes or being properly registered in the tax system may go unnoticed, which poses a challenge for ensuring full compliance. To address this, establishing a link with the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Affairs is a logical step to ensure that all businesses are registered and assessed accordingly. That said, efforts are underway to improve data sharing between relevant authorities, and we are exploring ways to enhance collaboration to better capture all businesses operating in St. Martin. The goal is to close any gaps and ensure that every business, regardless of whether it files voluntarily, is included in the tax base and subject to proper assessments. While this process will take time, we are committed to improving compliance and addressing these issues moving forward. Next question. A less popular idea, or next statement, a less popular idea would be if the tax office would monitor social media for businesses that are unknown to the tax administration. While not a question, I just want to inform the Honorable MP, through you, Madam Chair, that this has been done in the past, and the tax office will continue to take all necessary measures to ensure that everyone pays their fair share. As such, please be aware that if you are active on social media, the tax office is monitoring, and those who do not file their taxes can expect to receive an ex officio assessment if they do not file their taxes. Next question. If taxpayers receive assessments after filing returns, especially when due to insufficient withholding by employers, is there a mechanism by which penalties can be shifted to the employers instead of employees, or can something be done to ensure that employers withhold more accurate amounts? Madam Chair, through you. Employers act as a withholding agent for wage tax, ensuring deductions and remittances from employees' salaries, though employees remain the official taxpayer. If an employee receives an additional tax assessment due to insufficient withholding liabilities, depends on the cause. However, if employers used outdated tax rates because the government had not provided updated rates, such as applying 2022 rates for 2024, then the issue extends beyond employer responsibility. In such cases, employers cannot responsibly or reasonably be penalized for using the most recent officially available tax rates. To prevent such issues, the government should ensure timely publication of updated tax rates. However, it should be made clear that the employee is ultimately responsible for accurate payment of their taxes. Nevertheless, if employers are willfully withholding taxes from employees and not paying these taxes to the tax office, they will be held liable for payments of these taxes and will be fined. Next question. Why does it take so long for individuals to get their tax returns back? Through you, Madam Chair, the delay in processing tax returns is primarily due to limited staff or outdated system, late publication of tax tables, and a general lack of manpower. However, this issue has my full attention, and I am committed to exploring ways to support and enhance the tax office to ensure a more efficient and timely processing of tax returns. Next question. Is it possible for those returns to be used as a credit for future payments to the government from the taxpayer, for example, for vehicle tax? If not, why not? Through you, Madam Chair, yes, taxpayers must request this at the receiver's office for future taxes. However, as it pertains for vehicle tax, this feature is no longer possible. I now move on to questions by MP La Cruz. Are there any plans to make any changes to the national ordinance when it comes to profit tax for locals? Will there be any exemptions for young people starting businesses? Through you, Madam Chair, as previously stated, my intention is to introduce an exemption for SME businesses, allowing profits up to a certain amount to be tax exempt. The exact threshold for this exemption will be determined once we have the necessary data to conduct a proper assessment. Additionally, my plan includes a gradual reduction of the overall profit tax rates in stages, ultimately bringing it down to 15%. Next question. A problem is that business owners don't know everything when it comes to their obligations, being compliant with SZV, taxes, etc. Is it a possibility that when a business license is requested, a one-week training is provided, even if this training is digital and placed on a USB stick, which is given to businesses upon registration? Madam Chair, through you, I fully agree that educating businesses or business owners on tax compliance, SZV, and other regulations is crucial for a strong and compliant business community. Implementing a mandatory training program for new business license applicants, whether through digital resources, workshops, or online modules, would provide essential guidance. We will engage with stakeholders to assess the feasibility and best approach for implementation. Next question. My colleague mentioned the existence of statute of limitations on taxes. Is this true or not? Does such a thing exist? Madam Chair, through you, yes. Under the tax system of St. Martin, a statute of limitations does exist for taxes. This statute defines the time period within which the tax administration can assess, collect, or audit taxes. Generally, for most taxes, including wage tax and profit tax, the standard limitation period for tax assessments is 5 years after the end of the tax year. However, in cases of tax fraud or deliberate misrepresentation, this period can be extended. Additionally, the statute of limitations for tax collection is typically 5 years from the date the tax assessment becomes final, though this can also be extended under certain circumstances. It is always available or always advisable for taxpayers to maintain proper records and ensure compliance within the relevant timeframes. Next question. In the General Audit Chamber report on point 6, it states the lack of tax inspectors currently employed. The MP mentioned, Madam Chair, through you, that he didn't hear any ideas to get these FTEs filled. Could the minister elaborate a little on this? Madam Chair, through you, the government of St. Martin recognizes the urgent need to strengthen the tax administration by addressing the shortage of tax inspectors, as highlighted in the General Audit Chamber's report. To fill these full-time equivalent positions, we are actively working on a multi-pronged approach, including recruitment drives to attract qualified professionals, training programs to upskill existing staff, and collaborations with regional and international tax organizations to enhance capacity building. Additionally, we acknowledge the importance of reviewing and updating our function book and salary scales to make these positions more attractive and competitive in the labor market. We are also exploring digital solutions and automation to optimize efficiency and reduce the administrative burden on inspectors. While recruitment remains a priority, we are assessing internal restructuring to ensure that available resources are effectively allocated to critical areas within tax enforcement and compliance. Our goal is to build a stronger, more efficient tax administration that can better serve the country and improve tax compliance overall. I now move on to questions by MP Arian. In reference to filing of tax assessments, the current presentation contradicts the minister's previous statement. In a past video, when asked about filing tax returns, the minister stated, "You do not have to file your taxes if you do not have any additional income because your employer has already done so." Madam Chair, through you, as Minister of Finance, I provided clarity on this matter by saying, if the tax office sends you a form, you are required to file in accordance with Article 7 of the General Tax Ordinance. However, if you do not receive an invite to file and you meet the requirements listed in Article 41B of the Income Tax Ordinance, then you should not be obligated to file. However, currently in St. Martin, the tax inspectorate invites everyone to file across the board, hence the reason why everyone has to file on St. Martin currently. Is this process efficient? No, it is not. However, once the new system is implemented, this will be adjusted accordingly and would lead to a more efficient process and will also reduce the burden on our tax employees. That said, if you have had any additional deductibles, it is in your best interest to file your taxes to ensure you receive any eligible refunds, as not filing might not be in your benefit. Next question. Regarding the presentation of the minister and the report from the General Audit Chamber, when will the policy be written for the ex officio tax assessments, and what is the timeline for implementation? Madam Chair, through you, we will be engaging SOAB, given their experience in drafting processes, to assist in outlining this process. Our goal is to have it finalized by the end of the second quarter. Next question. What specific measures will be introduced to ensure that tax assessments are standardized and not left to the discretionary judgment of assessors, according to the minister? Madam Chair, through you. While there will always be instances where tax assessors may need to exercise professional discretion, our intention is to establish a clearly outlined process. This will include key steps to ensure consistency and uniformity among all tax assessors, as also clearly advised by the General Audit Chamber. Next question. MP Wescott asked a question relating to data and information. I'm sure the MP is aware that the government did not appeal the case related to the tax system, and to date, we have not received any realistic updates on the way forward. With the system that we have now, it is very difficult to access data. This would require a lot more of staffing having to comb through to collect data. Without a proper tax system, problems will persist. What is the expected timeline for the implementation of the new tax system? And is it fully supported by TWO? Are the funds still allocated? Is there any issue with TWO? Do we have to start over from scratch? Madam Chair, through you, I have consistently stated that we are in the process of retendering the tax system. The country is in urgent need of a new tax system. Based on the verdict, we sought advice on whether to appeal, potentially delaying the process for another year with an uncertain outcome, or to proceed with the retendering. The necessary funds remain available, and TWO fully supports this project. The State Secretary received a presentation on the tax transformation plans and was highly impressed by the vision and objectives. While we await the retendering, we will continue exploring ways to improve the process. The program managers are finalizing the new terms of reference, with publication expected in Q2. Are there ongoing discussions integrating with receiver, Chamber of Commerce, census? If so, what is the timeline? Through you, Madam Chair, this falls under the eGov project, where the integration of government systems is a key objective. However, the current tax system is highly outdated, making integration with other systems challenging. Nevertheless, the intention is that the new tax system will be designed to support such integration. Next question. Given that there is only one tax inspector, what short-term measures are being taken to address this critical shortage? Madam Chair, through you, this matter is indeed urgent. While a vacancy was posted, it did not yield results. However, this remains a priority, and we will explore alternative recruitment strategies to secure tax inspectors. Additionally, we must invest in educating young students after high school to strengthen our tax system, as was successfully done in the past. Next question. In Budget 2025, we don't see any budget to hire. With regards to the updating of salary scales, the Ministry of Justice fixed theirs, but the rest not. So what steps are being taken to attract qualified personnel by updating the salary scales within the Ministry of Finance? We do not need to wait on P&O to do so. We've seen clearly that with justice workers, this has been done. Madam Chair, through you, the necessary research must first be conducted to determine the appropriate salary scales. Once this assessment is completed, we can proceed with adjusting the function book accordingly. Unfortunately, no such research has been done over the past few years, making this the critical first step before we can move forward with the much needed update of the salary scales. Next question. What is the update on the BRA 8 and on the whole BRA legislation? We brought the legislation over a year ago, and the current government still cannot present it. Where is this legislation? Madam Chair, through you, this legislation is within the Ministry of General Affairs. As such, the Prime Minister would be able to provide you with an update on this. Next question. Is there any truth to the claim that the ministry is considering outsourcing temporary hires to address the backlog in tax assessments to any entity? Madam Chair, through you, I believe the Honorable MP was referring to whether the ministry is considering hiring temporary workers to address the backlog. I would like to clarify that I, as Minister of Finance, is committed to taking the necessary steps to resolve this issue. I was informed that a few years ago, a tax conference was held in Bonaire with tax authorities from Aruba, Curacao, St. Martin, and Bonaire. During this conference, there was strong willingness among the islands to support each other, including the possibility of outsourcing employees. Given this, we will explore these discussions further to assess what is feasible in addressing the backlog. What specific steps are being taken to ensure that taxpayers are informed about their rights and obligations before receiving ex officio tax assessments? Madam Chair, through you, the fundamental rights and obligation of every taxpayer is to file their tax return accurately and on time, ensuring that the tax administration has the correct information to determine tax liability. To prevent ex officio tax assessments, the government is committed to enhancing taxpayer awareness through public education, campaigns, clear communication, and accessible resources that inform individuals and businesses about their filing responsibilities. This includes providing guidance materials, workshops, and online tools to assist taxpayers in understanding their obligations. Additionally, we are working to improve direct notifications and reminders to encourage timely compliance and minimize unnecessary assessments. Next question. What is the way forward on surcharges, and does this improve compliance? Through you, Madam Chair, the estimated taxable income is increased with a surcharge to ensure that the tax office does not underestimate taxable income. As I have repeatedly stated, the intention of the tax office is not to issue ex officio assessments. Taxpayers are expected to file their taxes. If taxes are properly filed, no ex officio assessment will be issued and no surcharge will be applied. However, once an ex officio assessment is received, it is the taxpayer's responsibility to provide accurate information and file their taxes accordingly. Next question. What alternative methods will be implemented to address the issues with mail delivery due to the issues with the postal system? What are we, or where are we in terms of digital delivery? Through you, Madam Chair, under the current legal framework of St. Martin, official communications from the tax office, including tax assessments and notifications, must be sent via postal mail. However, the government is actively working towards implementing digital delivery methods while also improving the traditional mail delivery. Next question. Concerning the mini audit on Christmas vouchers executed by the Audit Chamber, what legal basis was used to execute this task? Through you, Madam Chair, to clarify, in terms of taxation, there is no difference between receiving a voucher or cash. Both must be declared in your income tax filing as required by law. Due to concerns raised in the General Audit Chamber's report regarding the inability to verify whether individuals actually received the Christmas voucher, the decision was made to transfer the funds directly to their accounts. This was deemed a more fair and transparent process than the Christmas voucher. To be absolutely clear, under tax law, there is no distinction between receiving a food voucher or cash, as both are considered taxable income and must be reported accordingly. Was there an LB, MB, or merely a letter instructing government to execute? Through you, Madam Chair, regarding the payout process, it is important to reiterate that gratification payments cannot be equated with the Christmas payment, as they are fundamentally different. Gratifications and certain allowances are governed by the LMA. As such, gratification payments must adhere to the applicable legislative and policy requirements, which do not apply to the Christmas payment. Next question. Concerning that this money was not requested, how do civil servants file this money received since it was given tax-free? Through you, Madam Chair, when filing their income taxes, they can add this additional 200 guilders in the column 5A in this section, net proceeds from rights to periodical benefits that are part of your personal income in the tax form, other income derived from labor. Please note that MP, Madam Chair, through you, this advice should have also been provided to civil servants last year when the Christmas voucher was provided, as this also should have been filed. Next question. Why did the government not take out any taxes automatically as they usually do when gratifications are awarded to civil servants? Madam Chair, through you, unfortunately, this would have led to significant manual work for our payroll employees to be able to do this for over 2,000 government employees. I now move on to questions posed by MP Labega. Would it be possible to collaborate with the Chamber and Notary when applying for your license? What documents you need, how to file your taxes, etc., via a barcode? Through you, Madam Chair, I fully agree that business owners should be well informed about the steps required when applying for a business license, as this process typically begins at the notary or the Chamber of Commerce. We will engage with stakeholders to assess the feasibility and best approach for implementing a need-to-know document. This will provide clear guidance on the necessary requirements and responsibilities for new business owners. I now move on to questions posed by MP Duran. Can the minister provide clarity on who needs to file their income taxes and when, as well as the statute of limitations of 5 years and what that means for taxpayers? Through you, Madam Chair, under the tax laws of St. Martin, all residents who earn income, whether from employment, self-employment, or other sources, are required to file an income tax return once invited to file. Employers withhold wage tax from salaries, but individuals must still file their annual income tax return to ensure accurate tax assessment. The filing deadline is typically April 30th of the following year, though extensions may be granted in certain cases, as in this year, the deadline is May 31st, 2025. The statute of limitations for income tax assessments is 5 years, meaning the tax administration has up to 5 years after the end of the tax year to issue assessments. If a taxpayer fails to file, the tax administration can issue an ex officio tax assessment, estimating the amount owed. If there is suspicion of tax fraud or deliberate misrepresentation, this period may be extended. For tax collection, the statute of limitations is also generally 5 years from the date the assessment becomes final. This means taxpayers should keep their records for at least 5 years and ensure compliance to avoid penalties or disputes. I now move on to questions by MP Waverd. What is the number of FTEs currently, and what are we looking at when we revamp the tax system? Madam Chair, through you, the tax department currently has 31 employees. The amount required with tax reform is still to be determined. Next question, is there a data analyst assigned or will be taken up in a new position once the system is revamped? Through you, Madam Chair, the data analyst function is necessary and will be included during the revision of the function book. Currently, via the TWO, there has been funds made available for a data specialist. As such, one will be hired and paid for via the TWO in the interim. I now move on to questions posed by MP York. As it pertains to the pending tax reform, members of the public have gotten a different understanding because they see the pending tax reform as imminent. To manage expectations, can the minister provide a realistic timeline, and can this timeline also be taken into account? The tax system has to be restarted from zero, if that is the case. Madam Chair, through you, the government of St. Martin acknowledges the public's interests in the pending tax reform and the need for clarity on its timeline. While tax reform is a priority, it is a complex, multi-phase process that requires careful planning, legislative changes, and stakeholder consultation to ensure a fair and sustainable system. Given the scope of the reform, which includes modernizing tax laws, improving compliance, and enhancing efficiency, implementation will not be immediate. A realistic timeline for key phases include 2025, providing key available data and finalizing the drafting of the legislation. For 2026, legislative review and approval process, which takes at the minimum period approximately 40 weeks. 2027 onward, full implementation, including digital infrastructure and compliance mechanisms. While the tax system is not being started from zero, significant structural changes are required to modernize outdated processes. The government remains committed to transparent communication and will provide regular updates to ensure the public and businesses are well prepared for the transition. Through you, Madam Chair, the request from MP York is clear. MP York seeks a detailed timeline outlining which legislation is in progress and its current state in the legislative process. At present, the legislation is being drafted by an external firm. However, it lacks the necessary underlying data. The firm is awaiting this data to support the adjustments to the legislation. Once the data is received and assessed, we will determine what can be utilized and identify any additional external data required. This will provide us with better insight into prioritization and the way forward. As such, I kindly request some additional time to complete this process. Next question. Be aware of the message sent out through Parliament or social media. Once it is said, you cannot take it back or contradict it. I would like to stress that everything that comes out of the minister's mouth is taken as fact, and in this case, confusion is caused by the minister. Madam Chair, through you, while I do acknowledge that my statements are taken as fact, I would like to state that besides my statements, Parliament too have a responsibility to also educate the public accurately and not contribute to further confusion. I have repeatedly clarified the requirements for filing taxes and have referenced the two legislative laws stating when you have to file and when you do not have to file. In addition, I stated that if a taxpayer is invited to file, they are obligated to do so. Additionally, I have emphasized that if a taxpayer has deductible expenses, it is in their best interest to file. If a taxpayer claims to the honorable MPs that they do not need to file, then as government and elected officials, we must collectively ensure that the correct message is conveyed rather than allowing it to be misrepresented or misinterpreted. Next question. Is the minister willing to submit her tentative plans for the tax reforms in writing, either to Parliament or my person or my faction? The reason being that I have previously inquired about tax incentives for startups and small businesses, given that our current tax code does not necessarily recognize the term small businesses. Yes, I am more than willing to submit my tentative plans for the tax reforms in writing, either to Parliament, to you personally, or to your faction. I understand the importance of addressing tax incentives for startups and small businesses in St. Martin, especially since our current tax code does not specifically recognize the term small business. I will ensure that these concerns are included in the plans, and I look forward to providing you with the relevant information to keep the honorable members of Parliament informed of the proposed reforms. Next question. I pitched a few ideas during the budget debate, and I have a few more that I would have preferred to discuss with the minister in person. I have reached out previously, but still awaiting a response, and I cannot get an audience with the minister. So I am hoping that once I receive her plans in writing, I will be able to see if my ideas would be feasible or not, and then submit them, if need be, through an official route. This is a statement, however, allow me, Madam Chair, through you. Thank you, Honorable MP, for sharing your thoughts. I appreciate your engagement and the ideas you have put forward during the budget debate. Please note that you are always welcome to my office to discuss your ideas. just as the public is invited every last Friday of the month for Finance Fridays, where they can walk in and meet with me from 9 to 12 p.m., I extend the same openness to you. Let's agree on a date and time, as I look forward to hearing more of your ideas. Working together is essential for a better St. Martin. And now I move on to questions posed by MP DeWeaver. There appears to be a difference in how tax assessments are processed. Individual assessments are done manually, while business assessments are automated. During the General Audit Chamber presentation, an example was given of a foundation, Stichting, receiving an automatic assessment of $200,000. Despite being a nonprofit and errors in the assessed year, how does the minister respond to concerns about the accuracy of automated assessments, particularly for nonprofit organizations? The government of St. Martin recognizes the importance of accuracy and fairness in tax assessments, whether manual or automated. Automated assessments are intended to streamline the process, but errors can occur, especially when categorization issues arise, such as a foundation Stichting being incorrectly assessed as a for-profit entity. If an entity receives an incorrect assessment, it is essential to file an objection within the legal time frame, providing supporting documentation to clarify its tax status. To prevent such issues, the tax administration is reviewing the automated assessment process to improve accuracy, particularly for entities like nonprofits that may not fit standard business classification. Additionally, we are working toward better data validation, enhanced taxpayer support, and improved digital systems to ensure that assessments reflect the correct tax liability. Next question. What is the time frame of the ex officio assessments? How long after the filing deadline do you get an ex officio assessment? Madam Chair, under the tax laws of St. Martin, if a taxpayer fails to file their income tax return by the deadline, typically April 30th of the following year, the tax administration may issue an ex officio assessment. The time frame for receiving this assessment varies, as it depends on the administrative processing time of the tax administration. However, ex officio assessments are generally issued within 5-year statute of limitations for tax assessments. Taxpayers who receive an ex officio assessment have the right to file an objection within 2 months of the assessment date, providing supporting documentation to correct any discrepancies. To avoid ex officio assessments, taxpayers are strongly encouraged to file their tax returns on time and ensure compliance with their tax obligations. Next question. The report mentions that a project is underway to clean up the tax database. What is the current update on this cleanup? Madam Chair, the tax database cleanup project is actively underway with the goal of improving data accuracy, reducing errors, and ensuring that taxpayers receive accurate or correct assessments. This initiative is crucial for streamlining tax administration and enhancing efficiency in processing returns and assessments. In addition, it is a crucial step for implementation of the new tax system, as we need to ensure that clean data goes into the new system. Next question. When assessments are issued for businesses, we understand that government budgets on a cash basis based on tax revenue actually received. However, when assessments are made, how is this information used internally, and does it impact budget projects? Madam Chair, currently ex officio assessments are not factored into the government's budget process. Revenue estimation is primarily based on historical revenue trends, taking into account economic growth, potential increases from new policies and legislation, and other necessary adjustments. Since ex officio assessments are issued when taxpayers fail to file, they do not represent guaranteed revenue, as they may be disputed, reduced, or remain uncollected. Additionally, data collection challenges make it difficult to accurately project revenue from these assessments, so they are not included in the budget process. Next question. There have been recurring concerns about improving coordination between the Receiver's Office and the Tax Administration, particularly in streamlining the assessment and objection processes. What plans are in place to ensure better collaboration and efficiency in handling tax assessments? Madam Chair, the government recognizes the importance of streamlining coordination between the receivers and the tax office to improve efficiency in the assessment and objection process. Currently, the law requires that requests for postponement of payment be submitted to the receiver's office, which handles tax collection separately from the assessment process. However, we are exploring ways to enhance communication, digitize processes, and improve transparency between both entities. The goal is to ensure that assessments are properly documented, taxpayers have clear guidelines on objections, and decisions are processed in a timely manner. This initiative aligns with broader tax reform efforts aimed at making compliance and dispute resolution more efficient for both businesses and individuals. Next question. There is ongoing confusion among the public regarding the AOV, General Old Age Insurance, tax assessments, as they are still issued on tax administration letterhead. Even though SZV is responsible for collection and payouts, why does this process remain in place? Madam Chair, the reason AOV tax assessments are still issued on the tax administration letterhead is due to the legal framework governing the administration and collection of Social Security contributions. While SZV is responsible for collecting and disbursing AOV payments or benefits, the tax administration remains the designated authority for assessment and enforcement. This system ensures that Social Security contributions are treated with the same level of compliance and enforcement as taxes. However, the government recognizes the need for greater clarity and modernization of administrative processes and is actively working on improving communication and coordination between SZV and the tax administration to enhance the transparency for taxpayers. Next question. A fellow MP referenced the 10% versus the 25% markup and noted that it is more challenging for the government to collect from businesses compared to individuals. Does the Ministry of Finance support having a differentiation in markup rates between businesses and individuals, and does this create a fair playing field? Madam Chair, the Ministry of Finance recognizes the challenges in tax collection from both individuals and businesses and acknowledges the concerns regarding the differentiation in markup rates. The rationale behind varying markup percentages is based on tax compliance levels, enforcement capabilities, and revenue predictability. For businesses, tax collection can be more complex due to deductions, expenses, and varying revenue streams, making assessments and collections more difficult compared to individuals whose income sources are often more straightforward. While differentiation exists, the goal remains to ensure fairness in the tax system. The Ministry is committed to reviewing current policies to determine whether adjustments are needed to create a more balanced and effective tax structure while improving compliance and enforcement. That brings me to the end of the question and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Gums, for all of those thorough answers. So I'm very glad that we rescheduled this meeting to make sure that when the answers came in, they were complete so that everyone could get everything at the same time. So before I look to the floor to see MP La Cruz, you have the floor for any follow-up questions after the minister's answers.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, through you to the Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance, when I was in school, I was taught on how to make goals. And there was a method, SMART, specific, meetbaar, acceptable, relevant, and tijdgebonden. And the T I miss in the question, in the answers to my questions. So, Minister, Madam Chair Lady, through you to the Minister, I got a extensive explanation of what the ideas were, but I still miss the timeline in it, which to me is extremely important. You know, that we could say, hey, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, at the end of the year, at the end of next year, 2030, we will have this done. But an idea of when it will be done, I would actually like that from the Honorable Minister of Finance. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacruz. Just as a note as well to everyone, I would like to allow all the MPs to ask their follow-up questions before giving the floor back to the Minister. I see MP Johnson-Webster, you have the floor. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, and thank you very much, Minister, for your answers. I hadn't really noticed the amount of questions that we had asked you, so I thank you very much. And I would like to start off by commending you for your efforts towards the seniors in our community, and I really look forward to you being to achieve what you want for our seniors, because sometimes, you know, they have been faced with such exorbitant taxes, and it has been always a goal of, I know, your party, but also other parties of the coalition. So it's good to see that promises made are going to be kept where our seniors are concerned. I really commend you on that. Secondly, I was pleasantly surprised throughout your whole presentation where you mentioned data, and you mentioned data-driven policy implementation. And I was also glad to hear that via Terrio, you will be able to hire the data analyst. And also there, I would like to know timing. In which quarter do you anticipate that you will have that data analyst? And then my last question is, are you open to sharing data with the Statistics Department? This has always been a question, an issue. I know that in Curaçao it is done via you, Madam Chair. It's done in Curaçao, and if the Minister is open to sharing that data, because the Statistics Ordinance also speaks on having that data available. It's primarily used for the calculation of the GDP and making the GDP more robust. The Statistics Department does an economic census. It's supposed to be done every 5 years. I know that there were some delays last year, but there's an economic census, and out of that economic census, we know which businesses exist, and then a stake proof, so a sample of those businesses are used for the calculation of the GDP. And if the tax office would cooperate, it would be a lot easier, because the businesses are asked to answer questions that they feel like they just answered when they submitted their tax papers already. So if the tax office would cooperate with Stat Department, we would have a more robust system. So that's my question, how the Minister feels about sharing that data. Thank you.
Thank you, Member of Parliament Johnson-Webster. I see that MP Wescot-Williams would like the floor. MP, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and a good afternoon to the Minister and her support staff. I join my colleagues in thanking the Minister, through you, Madam Chair Lady, for her extensive answers to the questions posed by members of Parliament. And so my first question to the Minister is whether the the minister will be responding to the General Audit Chamber on this report if she has not yet done so, also outlining the ministry's steps towards the issues as presented in the report. That's question number one. Madam Chair Lady, I would ask the minister to, if she could, and I say once again, explain the idea of the proposed changes that will come to the income tax with respect to pensioners. Coincidentally, on two different locations this morning, I was asked that question. So I think that while we understand the numbers and what it means for what category of our seniors, seniors themselves don't really understand. So they have the idea, they got a feeling that something good is going to happen with their taxes, but they're not sure what. So if the minister could just again sort of break it down in speaking to the pensioners about it. That's my second request. By the way, I did answer the questions as they were posed to me, and I will continue to give it from a broad spectrum as well. But since the minister is here and gave the numbers once again, like she provided in the media, I asked that. Madam Chair Lady, through you, could we receive the written answers from the minister? I see she has them nicely prepared. So if we could receive a copy of that. And then fourthly, the issue of the tijdelijke werkorganisatie and what they're doing. Question, is everything that the minister is doing, preparing, analyzing, and researching, is that in collaboration with TWO, or are there one or more trajectories that the ministry itself is embarking on while the TWO is doing what, according to the Landspaket, they have set out to do? So it's everything, the proposals for the pension exemption, let me use that word, the minister knows what I mean with that. Is this something that the ministry is going after, preparing, etc., or is it been done in collaboration or maybe even by the TWO? Madam Chair Lady, in again expressing my thanks for the answers, look forward to receiving them in writing, because as I was asking the question, I saw the minister nodding. So I believe that means that we can receive them and will receive them, and then look forward to hearing the minister's reaction to those other brief questions. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Wescot-Williams, for your questions. I see MP Irian would like the floor. MP, you have the floor. Thank you,
Chair. Good afternoon, all. Thank you, Minister, for the extensive answers. And I also want to say that I said on the radio the other day that I'm happy to hear at least one of the campaign promises being worked on, which is the AOV for the seniors. And I also mentioned that I hope that we can get a timeline in place, because the seniors are believing, just like GB Relief and others, that this is happening this year. And I also get a lot of questions, maybe because of my former position, on how can it happen and when, and I can't answer these questions because I don't have the answers. So I'm hoping, like MP Wescott mentioned, that we get more information that's communicated to the seniors and a realistic timeline. Because I know that when we lower taxes on one end, it has to be balanced on the other. And I don't hear anything from the government in terms of revenue generating. Matter of fact, we know that there's no revenue generating measures in budget 2025 currently, and we have no update on an amendment. So I can't believe that in 2025, this would be applied. So I don't want to start to create an expectation to the seniors like we do with a lot of other things, and we don't meet those expectations. I would like a clear timeline to be able to give realistic expectations to the seniors. Which entity is working on this legislation? which entity is working on this legislation? Is it the Fiscal Affairs Department? Because I also know they are severely understaffed. Is it the TWO? Which entity right now is working on the legislation? And when did they start working on this legislation? In terms of revenue generating, because I've also heard other areas that the minister mentioned regarding bringing relief in terms of taxes, profit tax, among others. So I don't hear of the revenue generating, but I do know that the position of your party, especially through the Minister of TIAD, her position on the transaction tax, is that something that the government is looking into to be able to bring in revenues? And what is the position of the government or yourself, Minister, on the transaction tax? How many experts does the ministry have supplied via the TWO? So how many experts, tax experts in particular, does the ministry have supplied via the TWO? And what assignments are they currently working on? Is Deloitte, I don't remember if it's Deloitte or KPMG, I believe it's Deloitte. Deloitte had the overall assignment to work on the overall package of legislation. Is that still currently happening? And where are we in regards in that timeline? With all of the tax wishes of the current government, and as I mentioned, the shortage of staff or the understaffed in the ministry, especially in the tax department, tax and the fiscal affairs department. Can we get a priority list of legislation that we are looking at to be completed within 2025? Do you believe with the current staff that we have now, the wish list of the government, and probably in your governor accord to come, can be completed? Madam Chair, when I look at my questions, that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Irian. I see that MP Otley requested the floor. MP, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good day to the Honorable Minister of Finance, her support staff, the viewing and listening public. Madam Chair, today was a good, informative session. That is what I got from this session today, was informative on policies, laws, regulations, what can be done and what can't be done. What is missing, and I realize is often missing, and I'm hearing it from each and every member that has spoken, is clarity on timeline and clarity on when the minister plans to execute. An informative session sounds nice. It sounds good, but we are creating a precedent of expectation that my colleague just mentioned that probably won't be met in 2025. It is very dangerous. What I realize with our tax system is that there's a couple of things that can help our tax system. One is education and one is compliance. Education on the processes for individuals and businesses to understand when and how to pay taxes, amounts, percentage, and even tax write-off. A lot of us don't understand that, and I say us because I'm in the same boat as far as understanding the processes. Other thing is compliance. The compliance issue is informing the public often that, hey, this is owed, your timelines, et cetera, et cetera. What we see is a tendency, especially from the tax office, to hit you with a letter and say, hey, you owed this 4 or 5 years ago, this needs to be paid. It's some lump sum of 100 and something thousand, 200,000, we want our money now. I understand the importance of tax, but that's not how you deal with the public nor business, especially when your compliance is not up to par to ensure that you have notified the business or the person in a timely manner. Through you, Madam Chair, I've received many complaints throughout our community, especially from small business owners in the manner in which this is happening. Now, taxes are very important. Taxes are what run this company. If the tax office goes belly, this country, which it should be ran as a company, because if the tax office goes belly up, so does the country. Taxes are what help pave the roads, build houses, help our healthcare system. So taxes are indeed important. However, as mentioned, taxes needs to be balanced. So when we take from here, where are we supplementing such? So I would like to hear from the Honorable Minister more of your vision plan with a clear timeline, not just the informative session on yes, we're looking into this, I have to do this, because that is what the minister is supposed to say through you, Madam Chair. She's looking through this and she has to do this. I would like to know what can be done, because we all have plans, dreams, aspiration, but when you sit in that seat over there, I know that there's a lot of fight and backfighting, and this can't be done and that can't be done. So we need a realistic timeline on such. Also, I would like to touch clarity on something that was once said by the Honorable Minister of Finance, that there will be no more swap in debt as for persons within the community that may say, hey, the tax office owe me B, can this be deducted? Again, I understand such, but then the tax office cannot work as, I would say, a bully to the community, whereby there's no swap, but then when a person asks about their tax return, we're in 2025, and it's being stated that we are now working on 2019 or 2020. So if such is requested from the public of St. Martin, I think then the tax office should be sure that they have their finances and their situation in order, that they can then assess the taxes in a timely manner, so when persons need their returns, they can get their returns. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Utley. MP Lacruz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, and I forgot something that I wanted to actually mention in this meeting. The fact that this weekend I had a very uncomfortable weekend dealing with garbage and the garbage system in St. Peter's. But eventually I got a lot of private messages, and one of the messages brought me back to the point and a question that I asked during the budget debate, which was how much does government owe? And when I say owe, vendors, workers, contractors, and I can't remember ever receiving that answer. But that is something that I'd really like to hear from the minister. What is the plan? Because like I said, during the budget debate, I didn't get any, and I didn't see any ideas or any monies put aside to pay people that are owed. And I'm not saying that this is a fact, that the garbage is not being picked up because they have not been paid, but this is what I heard. So I'd like if the minister could elaborate a little on that, and all those that are listening could hear it, that my ranting and raving was not for nothing. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacruz. MP Utley, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair. One very important aspect as it pertains to the compliance issue. I look at jurisprudence. There were two big court cases where, in the instances, the suspects were acquitted of tax issues because the judge said, if you never file taxes and the tax never issued the invitation to payment, you cannot be held accountable. That is something very important. This is why I stress on compliance. And yes, it's probably setting a dangerous precedent saying it publicly, but it has to put the tax department on their toes to ensure that their compliance are up to par. This was judgment issued by the Court of St. Martin. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Utley. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the ROV, and looking at what I believe could be a long process, or even, let's say, a difficult process, and a back and forth even with the council advice, among others. Minister, the same areas as I mentioned, that you would have to find some type of revenue, because you're going to lose revenue on one side, so you have to find revenue on the other side. The same revenue that you're finding or you plan to find, is it a possibility or something to look into that, hey, we say, you know what, this process might take too long or might be too difficult, and then we look at other ways of supporting or even subsidizing the seniors, like we do, like, or we have how the Netherlands does with, let's say, housing support and this support and that support. because that does not require legislative changes. It just means we have to find more revenue, probably the same revenue that you're going to find, and that way it goes directly to the seniors and a lot faster. And that could be done in a year, actually. So I'm looking forward to the updates on the questions so that we could actually find like real solutions to help not just the seniors, but then others in the community that need support when it comes to housing, among others. Thank you.
Thank you to all the members of Parliament for their questions. Before I pass it to the Minister, I also wanted to ask a few questions based on the answers that we received. It has been partially questioned and clarified by some MPs, but just to make sure, I'm just going to bring them all out. Regarding the breakdown of the seniors relief, well, once we get the answers from the Minister, I think it will answer a lot of our questions that we have already. But regarding the breakdown of the seniors relief and the changes to the tax brackets, I noted that I believe the Minister said that changes will be made to AOV as a source of income when it comes to the calculation of the taxes for seniors. And I just wanted to make sure that's what it was. And I think once we have the answers in writing, then the question will come out of it, because I tried to keep up with it by taking some notes of the changes of 12.5% to 200, 20% to 0. But I would like the breakdown regarding the different brackets, because the Minister noted that there were 6,300 seniors, where 85% of those 6,300 are being taxed, and it was just to get the complete list of that, please, Minister. Other MPs have talked about the timeline regarding the various taxes mentioned. One of them that I would like to ask about is regarding profit tax. The Minister noted that the profit tax will be decreased in a phased approach. I also took note of the fact that it was mentioned that profit tax for SMEs would be considered as an exemption. But one of the issues that we've had in this dialogue of profit tax being eliminated or brought down to 0 or restricted to a maximum of 15% globally, it's because one of the reasons is because of ring fencing, as they like to call it, where global companies, international companies will shift their profits to avoid taxes in various jurisdictions. And one of the, I believe there's a significant amount of countries in the world that have actually signed on to agreeing to the minimum level of profit tax being 15%. Now, with that being the case, I want to see how the SMEs will fare if we are offering an exemption for that, whether or not it opens the door for the discussion of maybe being outside of what the global approval are or the global commitment is to minimum 15%. I'm sure a lot of businesses would love to have 0% profit tax, but I don't know whether or not that ship has sailed on 0% profit tax. But I do know that, where St. Martin stands in comparison to Aruba and Curacao, we are the only ones waiting to adjust our profit tax. There's one question that I do have, which, I know we didn't bring up because, the fact that we've been waiting on tax reform for such a long time, it seems that all of the questions are coming up in this discussion where we were talking specifically about ex officio tax assessments. But I believe then that this is just a sign for the Committee of Finance to potentially have another discussion like this regarding tax reform in a more detailed manner. Nonetheless, this has come up, and one of the scenarios that I've dealt with lately, consistently in the past year, is where you have persons buying property on the Dutch side and asking the question of, well, where do I go to pay taxes on the income that I earn on my property? Because it's one of those things that even though we have real estate companies, even though we have notaries, it's always an area that people miss out on tax from. And I believe because of the frequency of the questions that constantly come to me by persons within the neighboring islands, actually, that buy property on St. Martin are constantly asking, how do we pay taxes here, basically? So there's improvement, again, from our side in making that information readily available for them. And with that, then I was just wondering, how easy is it for a foreigner who is not a resident, but they just own property, to get a crib number, a foreign property owner crib number, and how do they go about that, and how long does that process take? Because, you know, as one of the MPs earlier said, you know, we're all looking forward for tax reform where we will have less of a burden on our residents, on our citizens here, and our community here. But of course, you want to balance it out with somewhere else. But if we're constantly missing out on tax stream from persons that are owning taxes and receiving an income from property, and I'm not talking about Airbnb specifically, I'm just talking about normal letting that will be done through a private website, not through any real estate company, not through VRBO, not through Airbnb, because that is the other side that we're still missing out on. And the reason that I asked that is because when the minister gave one of the answers, it was talking about the obligation of residents earning income here to do their tax assessments, but we often focus just on the residents, the permanent residents of the island and the citizens of this country, as opposed to foreign ownership of properties that earn income from their properties. And that is it for me. Minister, I give you the floor, or I just want to see if you want to have a couple of minutes to. Yes, I will take a 5-minute break. Welcome back to this Committee of Country Expenditures meeting. After consultation with the minister, it was agreed that we can receive these answers that have been asked again today in writing in 1 week's time, which I have agreed to, in consultation as well with the members of parliament. And we will adjourn this meeting and reschedule at a later date after we have all gone through the answers received from the minister. So the minister will send her answers that she came today to answer. We will also receive the answers to the follow-up questions that we asked today within 1 week. And we will then reschedule this meeting for a later date as agreed upon with the Minister of Finance and her team. Minister, thank you once again for the answers and participation from the members of parliament. Thank you all for this, and this meeting is hereby adjourned until a later date.